Hey guys, it's Gameface here and welcome back to part 1 of Make AC Milan Great Again. Now of course last weekend I did this sort of style of video with Arsenal, trying to make them great again. Basically, if you don't know and you haven't seen that before, you probably should go check that out just so you get an idea of the way that this works. But basically I have 4 seasons to try and make a team great again. It's kind of in the name, and yeah, that's kind of what this series is all about. This time I'm signed to with AC Milan. Of course they played Arsenal in fact recently, having lost obviously in the first leg. And they do need some rebuilding, they need some improvements, and that's exactly what we're going to try and do in these 4 seasons. So this is part 1, and that means that obviously it's going to be the first 2 seasons, and then hopefully tomorrow will be part 2 will be out, and that'll be about 4 PM UK time. And basically what I'll do there is play the 3rd and 4th season, and hopefully we can achieve everything that we set out to try and do. Before we get into the video, if we could try and hit 100 likes, then I'd really appreciate it. Also, please go ahead, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already as well, and I'd really appreciate that. Trying to hit 17,000 subscribers as my next sort of smaller target, and I'd be really appreciative if you could go ahead and hit that button for me. That'd be absolutely fantastic. And without further ado, let's crack on with the video. Let's take a look at the rules. The rules are very simple. First of all, signings don't have to be realistic. Secondly, you have 4 seasons to turn the team around. Third, aim to win the quadruple in just 1 season. And then 4th, sim all games but the Champions League final. So let's crack on with the season. This is the team I've got to work with. Just thought I'd take a look at the side, see where we needed to improve, look at where we need to bring in players in various positions. The fullbacks looked like places that we did need to improve on, as did our midfield as well. So we started by taking a look at this guy here, a midfield that I wanted to try and sign. A bid of £35 million was agreed, and I went on to try to negotiate his wage. He could play all the way through the midfield and the left mid as well. Thought he'd give us really good options for us. We did eventually also agree a wage as well, about 54 grand in the end was accepted, and he was our first signing. So pretty happy with that one from Villarreal. Really nice to get him in. He's 25 years old, 82 overall as well. Then moved on to the fullbacks, and I thought I'd take a look at Kurtzauer, is it how you pronounce his name, from PSG. £18 million was eventually agreed for him. I really wanted to try and bring him in to improve our fullbacks, give us a better sort of strength and depth in those positions as well. And then we moved on to the wage. Again, something had to be negotiated there. Quite a lot of bonuses added on to this deal, but we did eventually manage to agree a £51,000 a week deal with him. So pretty happy with that. That's our first 2 signings already, very quickly done as well in the first couple of weeks of the transfer window. We eventually then sold a couple of players while Montalivo goes. He was sold. We got about £4.5 million from him. Then I wanted to bring in Vasquez, I think is how you pronounce his name, from Real Madrid. Again, wanted to agree a pretty big deal for that one, and so eventually we did agree a deal. It had to be agreed outside. It was stalled a little bit as well, but we did sign him up eventually. Abate left us as well. Had to try and make way for other players to come in. Brought in Rafael, which, you know, it's a bit of a strange deal maybe, but I had to bring in a right back. I was on a limited budget having brought in Vasquez, and so he was the guy I decided to bring in. Eventually will be replaced, I'm sure, and brought in a better right back in that position. But so far, 4 big signings for us. Pretty happy with the ones that we brought in as well. They enter our first team, the majority of them anyway. And then we see on to January, so 4 signings in the summer, no more than that. Didn't have a particularly dramatic deadline day or anything like that. Moving on straight into January, we found ourselves in 6th position. Not so great. We obviously need to try and improve on that. I was well aware that this first season is very much going to be the starting point of our rebuilding, I suppose. So I decided to sim a game in the January transfer window just to kind of monitor things a little bit. We got ourselves a 3-0 victory. Pretty happy with that. And then I decided to again sim another match, and I did the same throughout really January a lot of the time as well. We got ourselves another win there. Then I simmed a game against Napoli. That was in the Cup. Curious to see how we get on. Beat them in the quarterfinals, which was good. And moved on to another game in the January window to sim against Lazio. Rodriguez gets himself an injury, but it's fine because we come through with a 3-2 victory. Then I decided to sign some players on pre-contract agreements. We had little money to actually sign them for this window, so I thought I'd build for the next season, forget about this season a little bit, and try and strengthen ourselves there. So I brought in, obviously, Devin, I think, was the first guy, and then Jean Moutinho was this guy that I'm going for as well, to try and again improve our squad depth going into the new season. Then I looked at a goalkeeper, not to replace Donnarumma, but to just add to our goalkeeper depth as well. Wanted a second option that was a really good option for us if Donnarumma was to get an injury or whatever. So he decided to join us as well, and then I move on to Emre Can, another really good player as well, this time from Liverpool, who will be joining us next season, as with all of these pre-contract agreements. A deal was agreed with him, that means he's signed up, and we can move on to the end of the season, simming there and seeing how he gets on. Hopefully going to improve from 6th position, where we find ourselves currently. Let's wait and see. Hopefully we can do. You can see we've got to the end of the season now. These are the objectives. This is what we've managed to achieve. Did the brand exposure, which is good to see. That's a short-term critical one, but then we had to look at the continental success. We didn't manage to do that. Round of 32 is not good enough. Didn't manage to finish the Champions League place. We finished 5th instead, and we didn't manage to do the Coppa Nazionale as well. So this was the league at the end of the season. We moved up 1 place to 5th. Not fantastic, but certainly leaves us with plenty of room for improvement. Juventus won the league in the end with Napoli just behind them. Then, as you can see in the Coppa Nazionale, we ended up going out in the semi-final, so not too bad to be fair. Didn't quite get to the final though, Inter Milan beat us. And now I was curious to see how we got on in the Europa League. Didn't even get to round of 16. Disappointing really in the Europa League there. Got to improve next season. Hopefully we will. But yeah, 5th place, you know, obviously a lot of room to improve. And in the end of this season, I had to offer a lot of new contracts out to just the players I really wanted to keep going into the new season, or maybe I wanted to keep so I could sell them in the new season rather than allow them to just go and become a free agent. So that was the end of the first season. It was all really sort of about just putting in the foundations in this first season. So into season 2 we go, and this was all about trying to build on what we'd just put in place in the first season. So quite a tough season ahead potentially for us. We do have a lot of pre-contract arrivals, though, as you can see here. 1 player there leaving us as well, but we've got 4 players joining us, and 4 quality players. So I was happy to see that happen, and it meant that we could strengthen our team straight away. But this was the big signing I was going to make. Gabriel Jesus to come in, back here to leave us, who I think had been out on loan in the first season, so he was going to leave us here as part of this deal, and I was set in stone. I wanted to bring a really good striker, score loads of goals, and hopefully propel us into a really good league position by the end of the season. So eventually a deal was agreed, £74 million, and backer was eventually agreed on, and that meant we could get in on to obviously his wage and trying to bring him in. So 110 grand was what he was asking for. He was asking for a few bonuses as well. Wanted to remove that bonus and try and agree a deal there. It was always going to be tricky, but I wanted to sign him up, so I was prepared to pay whatever it took, and it would obviously blow basically all our budget. But I was happy to do that. He's a very good player, Jesus, and one that will be good for years to come as well. So deal was agreed. He joins us, and that's a massive signing to kick off this new season. And then I thought I'd move on to just kind of looking at a few deals. We had a bid in here for Vasquez, and although I wasn't desperate to get rid of him or anything, I do sometimes like to entertain these deals, so I did decide to delegate, and if they were prepared to pay, £70 million, I'd let him go. They weren't obviously prepared to pay that, and so that didn't happen. Man City then came in for Biglia, I think is how I pronounce his name. Again, was kind of entertaining that deal, potentially allowing him to leave. He's 32 now, and eventually a deal was agreed at £14.2 million. So I accepted it, allowed him to leave if he wanted to, and again, looked at other deals as well, accepted a few more deals that I was curious on, and again entertained this deal about Suso as well. This was Chelsea with a bid, and again it was very similar to the Vasquez. If they wanted to pay that amount of money, I'd let him go and I'd bring in somebody I thought could be better long term. So again I asked her about that amount and see what they were going to say to that. I didn't expect them to accept it, but I was accepting and sort of delegating a lot of deals. Biglia does leave and goes to Man City, £12.5 million we get from that deal, and a lot of other deals have been flown around in the early stages of the transfer window. Everton puts in a bid here for Kurtzwer, but not really interested in getting rid of him at the moment. Transfer talks broke down a lot of these deals, though not too many of them were actually agreed on, so there was a lot of deals flying around, like I said, but we actually rejected most of them, to be honest, or deals couldn't be agreed between agents, etc. So yeah, a lot of them didn't end up happening, but we were still determined to try and bring in some players ourselves, even though deals like the Suso deal there didn't quite happen as well. We had another bid in this time for Çalhanoğlu. This was from Arsenal. Another case where I'm just kind of entertaining it, you know, if they want to pay that amount, then I'll let him go kind of thing. And so that was very much the case with Çalhanoğlu here as well. 45, 47, whatever it would be. We'd wait and see what they say, but ultimately that was not going to ever be matched. A game against Hibernian here to try and qualify for the Euro League. This was a massive match with Gabriel Jesus starting. I was hoping we could get ourselves a victory. We absolutely smashed them with 5-0 victory there, and that meant that Jesus got himself a hat-trick as well on his first game, so I'm really impressed by that. Then I seen the first league game, we won 2-1 as well. Very happy to get that done. And then we move on to trying to sign City. So a little bit of a different deal here. That I'm trying to bring in another big midfielder, another big potential signing. Eventually something was agreed, and that allowed one of our players also to leave and go in the other direction. Then we moved on to his wage, trying to get an agreement done here. We did have a decent enough budget to get it done, so it was never going to be much of an issue. And eventually a deal was agreed at £71,000 a week. He joined us, another big signing really with Jesus, so really trying to step things up again with the signings that we're bringing in this season. Then was the game against Hibernian, and this was also the second leg to try and qualify for the Europa League. We seem pretty much through already. They took the early lead though, 19 minutes in, which panicked me for a second, but eventually all was going to be fine because we were always going to go through at this point. Going into the second half, we got ourselves an equaliser, and then it finished 1-1. So we were through, we got ourselves into the Europa League ready for the second season, and then we move on to Arsenal wanting to sign one of our players, and we asked for about £30 million thereabouts, and we try and get a deal sorted there. They agreed the £31 million transfer, and Arsene Wenger ends up signing him, and it's a big deal for him, and so that means he moves, and we get £28 million as part of that. We then reinvest that money into a midfield. I wanted to try and bring another player to try and fill that gap, someone a little bit younger. I went for Rafinha. £30 million was agreed there. We moved on to his wage, and again was a case where we have a lot of money to spend. We don't really have any issues. We didn't decide to pay his bonus though. They were happy about that, and they were just wanting a little bit more on his wage. So we did again agree the deal, and that was going to be 130 grand a week. So pretty impressed by that one. Another good deal, I think, to bring in. Pretty happy with the signing of Rafinha. He joins our midfield, which again needed strengthening, and that was it for the summer transfer window. Quite a quick one for us yet again. Just very decisive about the people we brought in. That brought us to January, where we found ourselves in second place in the league. Very impressed by that. 2 points behind Genoa of all teams. Very strange, but they were first place at the moment. We've also got ourselves through into the round of 16, and then the Europa League was second place and through into the knockout stages there. So pretty happy with all those sort of things. But Jesus was out with a bit of an injury. He was back soon though, which was all right. Sold a couple of our players, had to try and raise funds in January if we were ever going to be able to sign anybody, and then we moved on to simming a few games just to make sure I definitely was going to win them. I decided to sim them through here as opposed to the calendar during January. So moved on to this game against Cagliari. We took a 1-0 disadvantage in fact, and they scored 8 minutes in, which is not good news. We did manage to equalise and we won the game 2-1. So I was impressed by that. Then we got ourselves another couple of victories, another one against Cagliari, and then moved on to another league match, Sampdoria this time, which we decided to sim, and we won the game 3-0. So I was making sure we're picking up these victories. Had a game against Bali as well, which we managed to win, and we also beat, I think, Inter Milan there to get into the next round. But that was it for our January. We didn't have a big enough budget to do anything, and so we had to sim all the way to the summer without making any additional signings. Bit of a shame, but let's have a look at the league table. Was it necessary that we made any signings anyway? Did we need to make them? We found ourselves in the final of the Coppa Nazionale, and we found ourselves winning the league in our second season, 90 points ahead of Juventus, an incredible second season. Didn't need the January signings, didn't need to bring anyone in, and we saved our money, and we didn't, in the end, need to sign anybody, so I was pretty impressed by that. We've managed to get ourselves not just a cup final, but also a league title as well in the second season. But how we get on in that all-important cup final against Napoli? Could we manage to do the double in our second season? Let's wait and see. Coppa Nazionale final. Did we win? Did we lose? We won. 3-1 victory. Very happy about that. And that meant that we did manage to do the double in our second season. So I was impressed by that. Obviously didn't do so well in the Euro League. Need to try and improve on that side of things going into our third season next episode. But yeah, overall pretty happy. Only thing I was a little bit surprised about was the fact that Spurs won the Champions League. What's going on there? They've beaten Bayern Munich in the final, and I've got Harry Kane sat next to the trophy. I couldn't believe it. How have they managed to win the Champions League? I'm not actually too sure at all, but fair play to them, they did it, and that's something we're going to try and replicate ourselves next season, because now we're in the Champions League, obviously having won the league title this season. Looking forward to that, and we'll move on into the third season tomorrow. Look forward to sharing that with you. Hopefully we can make further progress and try and build on what we achieved in that second season. So that's everything for part 1 of Make AC Milan Great Again. Pretty happy actually with how we ended Season 2, to be fair. Winning the league, winning a cup as well. Not too bad. Obviously to improve, and obviously next season will be in the Champions League, but we have been in the Europa League, not done so well in that competition just yet, but we've got to try and do better in those sort of competitions when we get into Europe, and hopefully we can do that going into Season 3 and Season 4. Obviously big ambitions to try and win the thing, so yeah, I guess we'll wait and see. Before we end today's video though, I'd really appreciate you going ahead and clicking that like button. Don't forget to subscribe as well if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate that. It'd be absolutely fantastic. Join me for part 2, which will hopefully be out at 4 PM tomorrow, and that's 4 PM UK time. Thanks for watching guys, thanks for supporting the channel as well. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.